teaser. June the 30th, Friday morning, 75, 85 for the weekend, into the 90s, and back on Wednesday morning. If you've ever spent any time listening to the show, you know that the only real sport is professional wrestling, and everything I learned in professional wrestling taught me how to do better radio. And we met Matt Yaden about a year ago, and he is a professional wrestler at heart, and because of him, we got to speak once with Vince Russo, who, if you read, again, professional wrestling history, you can't negate Vince Russo. So the guys are back, and they got a show going on the 1st of July. That's Saturday night, and they're good guys. And I'm a Mark. Good morning. Good to see you, man.
Good morning.
I haven't seen you in. Yeah, you look good, man.
Thank you. I'm trying.
Boys are doing well.
Yeah, we continue moving onward and upwards, so things are going pretty well over there.
When you were a kid, when did you get on? My grandson's a little guy, just turned 5, and he's just starting to look and watch pro wrestling. He's gone through Thomas the Train, you know, and everybody I know, all these guys I know, like guys that I know, and they tell the same stories, and now it's all superheroes. But he's starting to get a little glimpse of pro wrestling. Is that kind of how it goes?
I think so. I mean, because people don't still to this date, I don't think quite understand exactly what pro wrestling is, and a lot of and the kind of natural progression is the kid that likes the kind of larger than life stories and the kind of interesting characters, and it's kind of natural that you would kind of start gravitating towards professional wrestling when you watch any of those shows. I mean, it's just it's appealing to the eye and it's appealing to the mind as far as the story. So yeah, I think so.
So when you're a kid, take me back in time. You started to Mark. How old were you?
Man, I honestly, when people ask me when I fell in love with professional wrestling, I didn't fall in love with it until I was about 17.
Whoa!
I knew of professional wrestling and I thought it was cool. I thought the Macho Man was awesome because of the Slim Jim commercials.
Boom.
But back into where pro wrestling kind of it comes into pop culture, and it kind of naturally feeds into our need for entertainment. Even if you don't watch professional wrestling, professional wrestlers are always good at working their way into. Macho Man was on Arsenio Hall all the time, and he would the Slim Jim, and obviously Hulk.
Yeah, sure.
But I knew what it was, and I had a lot of friends in elementary school, middle school that loved pro wrestling.
Oh yeah.
And then I met some pro wrestlers later on, and that's kind of what helped me fall in love with it. So,
Casey, you marked when you were a kid, didn't you? You and Pastor Scott and everybody, you guys were marked as young guys.
Yeah, the big one for me was WrestleMania in the Superdome.
Yeah,
that's when it was like huge.
Yeah, see? I mean,
well, and I remember, when I was a kid, when Hulk Hogan body slammed Andre the Giant, kids talking about it.
Absolutely.
The next morning, the kids that were able to actually get the pay-per-view and see it happen, it was a big deal. It was a big sporting event to the kids. So you couldn't escape it. My parents weren't into it. They didn't really, I was a baseball kid. That's all I wanted to do was play baseball.
Well, you're a big guy. I mean, you're really a big man, and what they're saying pro wrestling, it's big men. But I've written about it, talked about it. My grandma was a mark, and she marked for Bruno Sammartino because we were in Pittsburgh, and she was like the biggest mark for Bruno. And so Grandma had a TV, so we'd watch. It was Pittsburgh wrestling, but it was Vince's father's show out of New York, and Bruno was local in Pittsburgh when I'm a kid, and then goes to New York and becomes the legend that he is today, Bruno Sammartino. But there was something about it, and I've read the television history. It was a one-camera shoot. You couldn't do baseball or football because technology wouldn't let you do it. You had to have multiple cameras, and they hadn't gotten there. But you could do roller derby with one camera. You could do pro wrestling and boxing. Now, I'm a huge fight fan, so there was Wednesday night fights and Friday night fights. But it was a one-camera shoot, and those cameras, from my reading, they had to almost encase them in cement. They were so heavy.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until people figured out that you could have multiple cameras, and then you could show a baseball diamond or a football field or whatever it was. But back in the day, in the golden age, is, of course, when television kicks in, and then wrestling. And they go hand in glove.
I think so. I mean, professional wrestling is built for television. It's a great television product, and the beauty. And I tell people when they come into the school or they come to the shows. And kind of observe what we do. But anybody that wants to get into it, you'll never have more fun doing anything in your life than if you put your all into this, because the possibilities are endless in what we do because of the nature of what we do, and it translates really well to TV. But the beauty of it is it translates just as well live. Like people come to a live show, we get a lot of people that don't watch pro wrestling, but they show up and they didn't realize how much they would enjoy it because of the interaction and just how live the audience is and how great the environment is. So
one of the most fun times I've ever had is because I was able to be in this business and then be used to do rings and TV, but for directly and indirectly for Vern Gagne, and meeting all these guys who really were, and they taught you how to do radio. They taught you everything. Mm-hmm. They were the consummate showman, and they got it. And they got it better than anybody I ever met got it. I mean, they were. I've always said that it was a morality play. Mm-hmm. And if you know medieval history, these morality plays, of good and evil would travel, and they put on these performances, and the devil was always involved, and the kind of Siegfried is a morality play, mm-hmm. and these are modern morality plays. That's all they are.
I remember calling in our first ever show back when it was called NRW back in 2010. I actually called in and we talked about it a little bit.
Oh, you and I did.
Yeah, and I remember you making that comparison, and I'd never thought of it that way, but it is. Of
course it is.
It's good versus evil. It's that eternal struggle, and that's the basic story. And then you get all these different ways of telling that story with all these different characters and all these different situations. It's truly its own unique form of entertainment that people don't quite understand the complexity of what goes into.
One of the people that's heavily influenced me is Joseph Campbell, and I highlighted my life as I actually met Joseph Campbell before he passed away. And one of Campbell's most important books is a book entitled The Hero with 1,000 Faces, that throughout, regardless of the world, individual cultures, they always have the hero. Mm-hmm. And he always has to be tasked, whether it's Beowulf or, people now say Odysseus, Ulysses. Somebody's being tasked. And they show up as medieval. And those plays would travel like pro wrestling. And in the end, good would triumph. But then it would begin again. Mm-hmm. Pro wrestling. And there was something, again, I'm back to this what don't I get part of this, but there's something internal with us. And my grandma was, she was an interesting old lady, but she marked. And I never knew my grandma was a mark until, I get smartened up in the business. And they, oh, yeah, grandma marked. Why do they call them marks? They're marks. That's who they are. And that comes from, the gypsies or carnies, they would go behind some guy's back, put a check mark on it. They were marks. Or they would mark the tree. This guy, you can make, you can mark this guy. Yeah, you can mark this guy. And I just absolutely fell in love with it, more so when I got inside, when I realized exactly, or I shouldn't say exactly, but what they were doing.
Well, and and I think when we talk about kind of, when you asked me, like, when I was a kid, where I started really marking out for it, if you will. It was when I started seeing, I met the group of people that were really into it, but then as I started throwing myself into it, and you start to see how it's put together and you see how things are created, it's why, I think in 2017, kind of the more people know, there's a difference of opinions of like, okay, what it's destroyed and what it's held. But I think people are interested in any form of entertainment, whether it's movies or any sport or anything. Yeah. When you see the kind of inner workings, you don't give too much, but when you can see how much effort is put into putting things together. When Vince Russo did the backstage show that he put online for a little bit backstage at our school, and you got to see how certain things were developed, a lot of people liked that as much, if not more, than the actual show, because they were interested in, that's how it's put together. I didn't realize how much there was that went into this.
One of the people I miss the most is Dr. Death Steve Williams, and Doc grew up in Lakewood. And, I mean, legendary guy. Doc, and when Doc found out he was ill and he came home, we used to ride motorcycles together and have these best conversations together. And I don't know if you knew Doc or not when he was at the end.
I met him, but I didn't know him.
Well, and Doc would he would come on remotes with me. I mean, I just loved being around him. Wonderful storyteller. And Steve's gone. But they have these stories that they ate so much when they were kids. His parents put a lock on the refrigerator and all that kind of stuff. Because, I mean, who was better than Steve Williams? I mean, he went to Oklahoma, played ball. Then he was a shoot fighter. I mean, he really was a tough guy, but the most gentle guy. And so we were talking, and I said, "What's the all-time run?" Because that's what they call him, a run. And he said he and the Junkyard Dog, the JYD. Mm-hmm. And he said he was the white heel, the dog was the black hero, the black face. And they're in the South, and they're with Bill Watts. And he said they would travel these joints, and he said he had like these custom vans and stuff. And he said people burned them. Mm-hmm. He said they'd come out, and the van would be gone, that kind of stuff. And they were always just, but again, they were getting a bigger bang out of it than maybe the fans were getting out of it. Mm-hmm. But and I used to watch them, and you studied them and learn from them. And the guy who books it, who tells the story, brilliant guys, and Vince is coming back.
Yes, he is. He's coming back to Colorado. We're really looking forward to that. He's still been working with us, from Indiana and helping us out. And
I'm reading a book right now. He plays out in the book. Right
yeah, now. It's the mind that has to see the whole picture for the performers kind of in the situation.
Sure,
I can see what I can see for myself, and then you try to see for everyone else around you, but when someone's on the outside of it and they're putting it together for everyone, it's just a different mindset that has to go into it. And
where's it going to go?
I have
that's
no
always
idea.
The line.
Yeah, right.
Where's it going to go?
You never know.
Never know.
But it's all the little things that come together to help us tell these stories, and it takes a village to tell these stories.
Absolutely.
So
I just did a new show open, and one of the highlights again for me, and probably everybody's like, "What are you talking about?" is I got to introduce Dick the Bruiser. He's at the end of his career, and they brought him in. He was an attraction. They brought him in to team up with the Crusher in some end of the world match, and I meet Richard Alphys, Dick the Bruiser, and you were told how to introduce guys, and the man too tough for the NFL. Man threw him out of the NFL because he was too mean. Which is like what a great gimmick, and so I now do that open. I've stole it from Dick the Bruiser, but it's an homage, as they say, to the Bruiser. And if you get it, you get it. And I was about, I'd been, Bobby Heenan smarted me up and Jack Lanza and those guys. But then to see Dick the Bruiser, and I used to see Dick the Bruiser when I was a little, not a little kid, but Dick the Bruiser was on television in Pittsburgh. Mm-hmm. And like, you were half afraid of Dick the Bruiser. And so here's the Bruiser. Turns out Bruiser's a pretty good guy, and everybody called, Richard was his name. And, it was just like, so, and I realized, man, Dick the Bruiser's teaching you something here. Learn it. Ernie Ladd, he's teaching you something. Learn it. And they always said that when they're standing in the ring and people are throwing stuff in the ring at them, Bob used to say, that's a standing ovation. We're so good that they hate us that much that they're throwing chairs in the ring. They said, that was applause. And I got that. I went, wow.
Well, and getting it is the beauty of that is what we do is about moments. It's not it's not about the individual movements in between. Most of the things that I remember from when I've been watching, or most people, if you ask them what their favorite moment is, it's probably might not even match related. It's something that happened. It's a stare. It's a look. It's something that happened. It's people throwing stuff in the ring. Those are the moments that you try to create, and that's all we are. Is we're a place where moments are made and memories are made, and that's the most important part of the whole thing.
And I'd always, when my job was, when it was over, I'd unplug the mic and get the ring bell and the timer, and head back. And then many times you walk back. I don't care if it's here or Cheyenne, wherever it was, and see guys you just saw just taking their heads off, hugging each other, saying "good job." That was the cool part. Was some guys trying to get a butterfly bandage on because back then you could juice, and they and they get they juice, and see them hugging and saying, "Wow, they're the consummate actors. They got it. They were really smart. They were bad. It was bad blood between guys, but it was over other stuff. Mm-hmm. It wasn't over that stuff. It was that stuff, and so." I don't know. I love it. We want to get involved, and it looks like we can do a Halloween show.
I think so. I think that would work pretty well.
I haven't been doing this for so long. I got one more left in me.
What are you going to dress up as?
I don't know yet.
Okay.
I don't know yet. I mean, we got to sit down. We get Vince back. We'll book this. We'll get Casey in it, and Billy Tharp and Roberto. Actually, we have Roberto down the hall, and Roberto was in a luchador thing, and they took his hair, and so it's one of Roberto's highlights. the luchador shaved his head, and so he's up for it. I mean, we can. Real quick, the rise of the luchadors too. Luchadors are really, really doing well too.
Yeah, and in this area, I've been to a few of the local shows, and they draw really well. They do really well. It's a very, very passionate fan base. It's an interesting style. And again, back to
those are the guys.
The spectrum of professional wrestling and what it is and what you're able to create with it. Like it's like two completely different things, but it's in the same genre. Different ways of telling that story, and they tell their story a different way than we do. It's pretty fascinating.
The nastiest tag team in the luchadors right now, in the Mexican, in the promotions, swear to God, and it fits right in, the landlords. They wear suits in the ring, and everybody has to pay rent in Mexico, and they're all poor. They hate these guys.
Yeah,
like their worst heels, the landlords, and you gotta love that. I mean, they're just like. So I'm like you. I'm a lay down. I'm Mark. And tomorrow night, Matt and the guys, Rocky Mountain Professional Wrestling Season 2. And if you're just local and want to go and have a good time, it's tomorrow night, the Quarry, Jefferson County Fairgrounds. And it starts, the doors open at 6:30, first bell at 7. And
actually, and there's a correction on that time, the one that was put out. It's the doors open at 5:30. The first bell actually will be 6 p.m. So
ring the bell.
Yeah,
they used to point down. Ring the bell.
Yep.
Ring the
bell.
Do it. Ring
Got
the bell.
Refs sitting there telling us to ring the bell.
Oh man, and the heel ref. One more quick story. I was telling Billy. I'm second time I'm working, and I'm sitting ringside, and I watch the ref pass the blade. I saw Billy. Here I am. And I always figured the ref was somewhat in on it. But when I saw the ref slide the blade, and I went. Oh, dude, the ref carried the blade into the ring, and the guy juices. But they're down on the ground, and the ref slides the blade. I went, cool. The ref's in on it. You haven't juiced though. Your head looks.
No, I have not.
Well, maybe we can change that, young man.
It could have maybe
that night with
October.
me and you.
Right,
maybe you're going to go to the blade.
It could be.
That's right. We're going to. Dusty Rose, we're going to bleed and go home.
Right.
All right. It's good to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, man, all the respect in the world. Again, it's Saturday night, tomorrow night, the Quarry in Jefferson County Fairgrounds. Tickets are at the door if you want to do that, or www.rockymountainpro.com. Doors are at
5:30 and the bell's at 6. And just another note, we got a former WWE TNA wrestler coming out tomorrow night, Jay Bradley.
Oh yeah, sure.
From Chicago, and he was Ryan Braddock when he was in WWE, and so we'll have a special guest there. So if you come out, go to therockymountainpro.com and get your tickets.
We'll be in touch right away because
absolutely
we've already come up with ideas off the air, and I got one more left in me.
Cool. We'll make it happen.